I still remember how in awe I was of Gia Gun's kabuki performance in All Stars 4. At that time, I had never really seen an Asian queen bring forth to the runway their culture like she did, so I was so sure that she was going to be in the top 2 for that episode. I was thinking, what a fabulous way for Gia to return to the competition and redeem her storyline. But as we all know, in that episode, Gia was just safe. This happened again and again. RuPaul's Drag Race, celebrated for revolutionizing the visibility of drag, has often been praised for its commitment to inclusivity. And recently, Nymphia Wind, being crowned the first East Asian winner of the competition, proves that Drag Race is still committed to its purported love for inclusivity and diversity. But as an avid viewer and a fan of the franchise who is Asian, I know that the portrayal and the trajectory of Asian queens on the show is a much more complex story. From the crowning of Raja in season 3 to Nymphia Wind's win in season 16, the Drag Race universe has had its fair share of fabulous Asian drag queens. But while early seasons celebrated their talents and their achievements, a noticeable shift in later seasons and even the spin-offs makes me wonder, when did it start changing and why? In its first few seasons, the show was considered to be ahead of its time and retroactively even being touted to have set the gold standard in reality TV when it comes to diversity. The first 2 winners of the competition were Black. That was followed by an Asian drag queen in the person of the fabulous Raja. Add to that the makeup of their cast, always primarily queens of color. The show never had a lack of Black, Latina, and Asian queens. And of course, as an Asian person, seeing Raja, Manila Luzon, Fifi O'Hara, Jujubee, Kimchi, seeing them just be fabulous and be recognized for that was amazing. I mean, they didn't just bring their artistic visions to the forefront, they also challenged stereotypes, and they really were able to show that there is amazing diversity just within the Asian community itself. But after season 9, I noticed that that narrative started to change. Save for Nymphia's recent victory and Anitra's runner-up standing last season, it seems as though Asian queens have just been relegated to roles that just aren't poised for victory, with a few even exiting the show in controversial circumstances. For example, Rock'em Sakura's abrupt elimination in season 12 despite having really good reception to her work, although she was not the most polished. But it was an early time for her to go, and fans just saw the mismatch between actual performance and judging decisions. You'll even see many conspiracies posted by fans on Twitter or on Reddit that it seems like Drag Race has succumbed to the bigger American issue when it comes to perceiving and valuing people of color. It's like they intentionally cast Asian queens to be, am I gonna say it? Filler queens? And don't get me wrong, if the queen isn't polished, regardless of her color, she really should be sent home. But also, we've seen how fierce Asian competitors are in the Drag Race US system. And just look at the 2 Asian Drag Race franchises, Drag Race Thailand, Drag Race Philippines. I mean, these franchises produce the likes of Pangina Heels, of Marina Summers. And now that I think about it, their runs on Drag Race is already kind of proving my point, but let's get to that later. And honestly, the main problem goes way beyond just the US main series. If you look over the All-Stars editions, they're mirroring this very troubling trend. Looking back, I can still remember how so many fans considered Manila Luzon's early exit from All-Stars 4 the beginning of the end for the entire franchise. At that point, the All Stars franchise had already been getting a lot of criticism for only having crowned white queens, despite having queens of color as frontrunners throughout the competition. Even more recently, in the 2 seasons of Drag Race UK versus the World, Southeast Asian powerhouses Pangina Heels and Marina Summers were both eliminated in what fans would say a questionable fashion. It's like you can be so good, even be the best in the competition, and yet that is still not enough to get you the crown. We can even add Aurora Matrix in Canada's Drag Race into the mix. And this comes after the weird back-to-back eliminations of Asian queens like 2 seasons prior. It's kind of a recurring pattern, so you can't really blame the fans for not receiving all of this as these random occurrences, but a consistent attempt to undervalue Asian talent. I mean, yeah, how could it be by chance for such a well-produced, Emmy-winning show? But here's the thing. Any American show I've noticed that becomes a lot more mainstream really just ends up sidelining people of color as they grow and get bigger. In a study, experts have found that in the reality competition show Survivor, for example, out of the total speaking time allotted for the entire episodes, white contestants received 66.46% of it, while Asian contestants received only 10.45%. So as Drag Race continues to be more popular and mainstream, will it just turn into all these other shows that just display such a lack of diversity? I mean, it might already have. Because let's be real, Drag Race has not been immune to diversity controversy. Remember the heated discussions around the treatment of the vixen in season 10? And I mean, personally, I do find it plausible, because when I think about these win-worthy cultural performances by Asian drag queens, I look back and think maybe they were way too ethnic to be deemed win-worthy by production. Because as a viewer, especially watching from the outside, I'm from the Philippines, I'm so used to American media being really good at subtly reinforcing this hierarchy that prioritizes Western aesthetics over others. I can also think of the fact that it seems like American content has a really hard time dealing with putting diversity and diverse stories at the forefront. It feels to me like in their minds, there's a limited space to put queens of color stories at the forefront because they also need to provide space for white queen stories. Does that make sense? But I'm not saying we should discount any queens. I'm not saying we should push away white queens or any color. I'm just saying that I feel like there's still this invisible machinery that pushes diverse stories down. As I've alluded to earlier, a 16-year-old TV juggernaut like Drag Race doesn't leave anything to chance. So I get to thinking, what could be the motivations behind these decisions that have impacted Asian drag queens over these many years? Is it to create dramatic narratives? Is it maximizing engagement by intentionally stoking the ire of fervent fans? Or is it perhaps, like in a lot of cases, when a show is maybe run by mostly white people, or if a lot of white people are in power, sometimes they're just unrecognized biases.
If you are white and you're raised in America, you are raised through TV, through books, through every single thing to have racial bias toward white people and against people of color.
Now, I'm not saying I know the makeup of Drag Race production, because let's face it, none of us actually know. But I will say that just so we all have something to think about. Because while drama and unpredictability are key components of the show's appeal, has it reached a point that it has knelt so much to the American mainstream sensibilities and started to lose its commitment to genuine representation? When Nymphia Wind finally broke the Asian curse by winning season 16, it was actually so celebrated, well received by fans, and a lot of them were saying that this may be a new era for Drag Race. And I low-key agree. Number 1, the finale featured its first on-stage final 3 since season 8. And okay, we had like the final 3 in season 12, but like the COVID pandemic, and then the incident. And at the same finale, they also crowned Black Queens as Miss Congenialities, I think for the 5th year in a row, which is fabulous. So okay, for a show that is spearheaded by a queer Black artist, I don't think the show will ever lose its handle on true diversity. But I do hope that as more white eyes shift their gaze to the Drag Race franchise, the show is able to consistently commit to its promise and, quite frankly, responsibility to provide fair and genuine representation for all colors. So sure, let's celebrate Yellow Fever. Nymphia's victory is definitely giving us all hope, and it sends a message that maybe the tide is finally turning. But as we've seen, progress isn't always a straight runway walk. Sometimes it can be a dance that's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And that's kind of scary in a time where everything is just very challenging for queer people all over the world. But regardless, it's really time to celebrate because the final 3 was a fabulous final 3. And we ended up with a fabulous yellow winner. So congratulations, much love to Nymphia Wind. And I actually can't wait to see a lot of Plain Jane and Saphira in the future. Yay! If you have made it all this way to this point of the video, thank you very much for staying and watching. And if you have thoughts, of course, our comment section is always open for those things. And please don't forget to like and subscribe to SISNE Studios for more content that is going to tickle your brains. Tickle your brains. Bye!